welcome back. So in this lesson, we are going to run through calling another Zap from a Zap. So what you're going to do is head over to Zaps, create a new Zap, and let's hop over to the trigger and let's just do, I guess it doesn't really matter. We could just say, maybe we could read from Slack. Let's try that. So let's say, what could we trigger? I mean, this probably won't make much sense. Let's just say new message posted to a channel. And again, maybe the logic won't make too much sense, but let's just say if there's a new message posted to this invoices channel, it's not going to be triggered for bot messages, just going to be triggered for human messages. Let's go ahead and do certain actions. So just to recap, I selected Slack as my trigger application. And I went into configure and I selected a certain channel. So basically, whenever a new message is posted in the channel I've selected, we will go ahead and do something. So let's open up Slack. I want to see what messages I even have in this invoice channel. Okay, I have a lot of garbage. Let me just delete all of these Zap file or all these Zap messages. All right, and I'll say hello. So let me find new records actually. So I pulled in a few new messages. All right, so this one, the text is hello. So I know this is the record I want to work with. So I'm going to continue with the selected record and we want to do an action. I mean, we don't really need this to be a complex workflow. I really just want to show you how we can use subzaps. So again, let's type in sub. We can enter subzap here. So whenever a message is posted to this channel, now of course, before we even do this, I know this doesn't make sense because usually it's useful to call an already made and maybe a complex Zap flow. So for example, maybe if we do all these actions, we then call another workflow to do all these other actions that maybe we pass data to, and then we get that data back and so on and so on. So I know it doesn't make a whole bunch of logical sense as to why we do this, but it's really just a matter of demonstrating how to do it. All right, so for our action event, we are going to call a subzap, and I don't have a subzap made yet. So we're gonna do, let's do a personal account, of course, personal account, and I'm going to open the subzap. All right, so once I click on open subzap, I can head over here and we can begin developing with this Zap flow. So let's just click test step just to make sure everything works. Test the trigger. So verify, we can grab our call. So the call is essentially just this. This is calling our subzap. Again, it looks like everything's good. And output return values. We're not returning anything right now. We could just do a hard-coded value. So let's say hello, and that'll be that. So that's what we're gonna return. So let's go back here. We're going to call this. We're going to continue. We're going to test the step. Okay, so one thing I forgot to do is I had to go to configure and specify the output and return values. So output, I just said number 1, and then this is the return value. So when I click continue, and then we head over to retest step, we can head back over here, retest step, and then if everything's set up correctly, in this data out tab or this data out field here, you should be getting this output value 1 with the value hello, or with the text returned as hello. So now that we are calling a subzap, we're getting data from the subzap. Now we're going to go ahead and go back to Slack and we're going to say send channel message. Let's click continue. The channel we're going to chat in is invoices, and it says this step may cause a loop because it acts similar to the trigger event, and that's not going to be an issue just because our new message or our trigger, it doesn't trigger for bot messages. Now, if it did trigger for bot messages, then yes, this would loop and we would just have all these messages being sent by the bot. So maybe I could enable that just to kind of showcase. I don't think it's going to spam like crazy just because I'm on a trial version, so nothing's real time. So we're going to say received the value, and I'm going to add in this / because I want to grab the data from this. So I'm going to grab this output value, and it says received the value. If I could type, received the value, and this is the value received. I'm going to say send as a bot, and I'm not going to specify anything else. I'm going to click continue, and I'm going to click on test. So if we go back to our Slack, we can see that they received the value of hello. So we can see that it is working. This sub zap is working. If I want to change its value, I could say test, I could click continue, and I could click on retest the step. Now, if I go back here, and I would believe I would have to retest this first, but let me just verify. Let me click on retest step, and let's see what it sent. So it sent hello, and that's because I never retested this step. So I never called this subzap again. So let me continue and retest the step, and the data out should show as test, and it does. So let's click on continue, and we're gonna do the same thing for this, where we're gonna retest the step. And now the data out should be the value here. Yep, receive the value test. So in Slack, it says test. So that's pretty cool. So we are now calling a subzap from another zap. Okay, so I was thinking what we could do that might make sense with these zaps and subzaps is we could have this zap here send data over to our subzap. So I'm thinking that a new user will post to our invoices channel, and then we'll send the username of who sent that message to the subzap, and then the subzap will read that name, and they'll send a new message saying, you know, hello to the new user, and it'll tag the user or something like that. So what we need to do first to be able to grab data from our main zap is we have to go to our subzap. We have to click on our start a subzap, and we need to add in an input/argument list. So it says here if we list the inputs to accept from a call a subzap, and they'll show up as fields. If we add the word required to the label, it would force us to enter that before calling the zap. So let's do that. Let's say required, and we'll say username. Let's click continue, and we'll continue again. And I don't believe I'll be able to grab it yet just because it hasn't centered that data. So we'll ignore that. Let's click continue, skip test. We'll do test step and retest. Oops, not retest. I meant to continue, retest, making sure everything's up to date. Let's head back over to our main zap, and let's just refresh, make sure we're grabbing the latest data. So once we click on our subzap here, we can see that there's a new input argument. It says it is required to send over the username. So if I click this, it says this is a field that is defined in our subzap's trigger. So I can go over there and change if I want. But what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to send some data over to our subzap. So if you noticed earlier, if we go to send a channel message and I click my /, you can see that I can't pull any data from our main zap. And that's because I'm never sending the data over. So what I could do is say, let's send over the username of whoever sent this message. So let's click on continue, and we'll just retest again. And again, that is just the return value for our subzap. So we're not really expecting anything crazy. And let's go over to our subzap now, and let's retest calling this. Actually, let me go back to this, and let me do find new record, and let's look at our second call. And after I refreshed again, I just had to keep clicking find new records, and I finally got my newest call where it actually sends over the username. So I'm going to click on continue with selected record, and now we can send a channel message, and we can tag that data that we're now grabbing. So we can see we have the required username right here. So I can say hello to this required username. I am curious in Slack if you are allowed to just do this and if it tags them. I doubt it, but we'll try it. So we're going to say send as a bot, yes, and everything else we leave as default. Let's continue, and let's click on test this step. And if we go to our Slack, there we go. It tagged me. Perfect. So let me click continue. Let's do continue again. And I don't really need to return any values here. I guess it doesn't really make sense to return anything. I mean, I'll keep returning it just because I have nothing else to return. But let's publish this now, and we'll run this. and I'll send a message on my account and see if it automatically is going to welcome me or whatever. I could also have a message be sent here. I'll say hello and thank you for this message, or thank you for this output, I guess. This is the value we're outputting from our subzap. This is probably going to look confusing, so I apologize. A lot back and forth between the two zaps. But essentially what we're doing is we are posting a message, or we're not posting a message, we're triggering if a new message is posted to our Slack channel. And if so, we are then calling a subzap. We are passing in the name of who posted the message. And then the subzap, if we head over there, is sending a channel message saying hello and tagging whoever sent the message. So after we go through all that, it starts to make a little more sense. So we can click on continue, continue. I'm actually interested in making this a loop. So if I enable this, it should just endlessly post. So I'm actually curious. I want to publish this and see what happens. We'll see. So if I say anything, I could say what's up, and let's just see if it loops. Now again, with my trial version, it's probably going to be pretty slow, but it should continue to automatically loop. But let's see. So hello, and thank you for this output. And then the other Zapier says hello Zapier, and okay, and it looks like yeah, we got a loop going. So let's go and turn the zap off, and let's edit, and let's actually give them different names for when they're sending a message. So the bot's name will be Zapier from Zap1. We're going to click on continue, and we're going to republish that. We're going to say version 1.1. And now we're going to head over to our other Zap, and we're going to edit this one, and we're going to change the name of this bot. We're going to say Zapier. What was the name of this one? I already forgot. Zapier Zap1. This one will be Zapier Zap2, or Zapier subzap, I guess. So continue, publish, version 1.1. And you can name whatever version you want. It doesn't matter. Whatever makes sense to you. And I'm actually going to rename this because I just renamed that one. I'm going to say Zapier main zap. So let's click continue and publish. And this will be version 1.1.1. All right, there we go. They're both enabled. Let me reset it up. Let me, I guess, re-trigger it. I'll say what's up, and it should begin to, or they should begin to message one another. So we have Zapier subzap. He tags me, says hello. Zapier main zap says hello and thank you for this output. And now Zapier subzap says hello, and it's just spazzing out. It's actually kind of funny because you can see here that the subzap is tagging itself, and it's also tagging the main zap. So it's tagging itself for every message it sends, and it's also tagging the main zap for every message it sends. Okay, so let me turn these off so we don't get a ton of messages. Not that it matters, but let me stop flooding the Slack channel here. But there we go. So we have successfully created a main zap and a subzap, where our main zap is calling a subzap, it's passing data to it, then the subzap does something with this data, and then it returns completely unrelated data back to our main zap. So we send a message, we tag whoever sends the first message, and then we return just this random data. And then our zap over here sends thank you for that random data. And that's essentially all we did. So it may have seemed like a lot of back and forth, but we really didn't do that much. All we did was pretty much create a zap that says, okay, I'm going to do this, call this subzap, subzap will do this, and then it will return whatever data I ask it to return, and then I'll send a message with the data that subzap returned. So I know it's a little confusing, and I recommend that you try this out on your own if you didn't follow along, and you'll get a hang of it once you start practicing with it, and try to make more complex zaps just to utilize all the aspects that we talked about. Now that we have understood how triggers and actions work, we want to start moving into different concepts of Zapier. So the main point of Zapier was to utilize the workflows as we have done, but it's also to understand how we can use these Zapier AI agents to try to automate some of our work. So the AI agents are really neat, and I can't wait to check those out with you guys. So I'll see you in the next lesson.